Miller, joined by Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today?
Hey, Kevin. Good morning.
How's your luck on the $1,000 summary? Did you text in last week, or have you been on that? Or?
I think I'm still losing, Kevin.
That's all right. Well, you got to play. Got to play to win, buddy.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah, there you go. All right, a lot of stuff going on in the world, a lot of things in Washington, a lot of things everywhere. But I want to focus specifically on some of the things that you've been working on. You met with the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, as I understand. Last week when we talked, that was on the slate of to-dos. Has it been to-done?
We had a good meeting on Wednesday afternoon, Kevin. We had a long talk about his record, both as a judge over 12 years and a very distinguished judicial record, as well as a lawyer in the Bush administration. Talked a little bit about our kids as well. His kids are a little older than mine. Talked about, a lot about life, and I was very impressed with what I heard. I think he's going to be an outstanding Supreme Court justice, and I expect that we will confirm him before the Supreme Court begins its new term in about 2 months.
Senator Tom Cotton, News Radio 102.9 KARN with Brett Kavanaugh. Is there anything there that is of any kind of concern, anything that you've looked at so far as you've vetted him and you've talked to him?
No, Kevin. I think Judge Kavanaugh understands the role of the judge in our democracy is not to make up the law or to apply his own values to the law, but rather to interpret the law as it's written, as it's written by Congress, or as our founding fathers wrote the Constitution. As Justice Scalia, one of the most distinguished jurists in the history of our country, used to say, if as a judge you don't occasionally dislike the opinion you have to reach, then you aren't doing something right, because not every law is written in the way you would have written it. And as a judge, it's your job to apply that law as it's written. I think Judge Kavanaugh understands that his role, the role of a judge in our society is very important, but it's also limited, because the most critical decisions that we make through our elected representatives, whether that's the president in Congress or the governor in our legislature.
Kevin Miller with Senator Tom Cotton, News Radio 102.9 KRN. Sanctions against Iran going back into place. You were concerned about the Iran deal from the beginning. However, our allies in Europe said that Iran was complying with this. Some of the nuclear regulators said that they were doing. Why did we get out of the Iran deal, and why are the sanctions important?
Well, so first, Kevin, remember that the reason that Iran would uphold its end of the bargain is it got a really good bargain. If you get a good deal in business, then you do everything you can to stick to your terms of the bargain, because you don't want to give the other party a reason to break the contract. And that's where Iran was. Iran got a great deal, $150 billion in sanctions relief, billions of dollars in cold hard cash sent straight to them, and nothing to stop their reign of terror against the United States, against Israel, against our other allies in the region. As far as our European partners go, look, there are plenty of countries in Europe with whom I speak who recognize the threat that Iran poses to them. Not just those long-range missiles that can reach Europe, but terrorism is actually being plotted against European capitals. And finally, we have a lot of allies besides European nations. Look at Israel or Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. Those are all critical allies in the Middle East, and they are incredibly thankful that the president pulled us out of this deal and is now taking seriously the threat that Iran poses, not just to the United States, but to them.
Kevin Miller with Senator Tom Cotton on News Radio 102.9 KRN. The Paul Manafort trial continues. Rick Gates saying that he conspired. Your thoughts on what's happening with the Manafort trial?
Kevin, I haven't followed the trial very closely. I don't tend to follow these trials very closely. I let the judge and the jury make their decision. Obviously, the trial is going to reach its conclusion sometime, I guess next week is what I read in the newspaper. But as someone who's not weighing the facts and the evidence that's written in the courtroom, I can't really make an informed decision.
Sure.
If Mr. Manafort committed crimes, then I hope the jury holds him accountable and that he's punished appropriately. But I can't comment on what's happening on a day-to-day basis. I'm more focused on what we're doing in the Senate or what's happening here in Arkansas.
You put together an op-ed along with Senator Orrin Hatch that appeared in the Washington Examiner, and it talks about a loophole that's letting violent criminals go free. Could you expand on that? What is that loophole about?
Yeah, well, Kevin, actually, this is a good point of what I was talking about earlier with Judge Kavanaugh and decisions that you don't personally like. 3 years ago, the Supreme Court struck down a provision of what's called the Armed Career Criminal Act, and just by its very name suggests the kind of people it's targeting. These are violent criminals who are repeat offenders. For instance, the case was Johnson versus United States. The Johnson in that case was a white supremacist who was conspiring to assassinate elected officials, in addition to a rap sheet as long as your arm. But the language in the statute that the court interpreted was it was called a crime of violence, or a serious crime of violence. And the court said that given the number of crimes to which that could apply. It was simply too vague to apply in a meaningful way. So the legislation I've introduced that our federal prosecutors, that law enforcement has asked us to introduce, clarifies that, and it specifies exactly what a crime of violence would be, so we don't have violent offenders who should be locked up for the rest of their lives getting out of prison after 5, 10, or 15 years.
Senator Tom Cotton, News Radio 102.9 KRN. Good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for being
Good to talk to you, Kevin.
All right, have a good day. 747 News Radio 102.9 KRN. Our